In the Mafuba municipality around Frankfurt in the Free State, there's a solar power plant. It's producing power right now, and enough power to make a real difference to allow that town to run almost without Eskom. But because of a court ruling, that town and the Mafuba municipality still have to implement load shedding. So what's happening to all of the electricity they produce? The company that owns the power plant is called Rural Maintenance. Its CEO is Chris Bosch. Chris, good afternoon to you. Now, just before we start, there's sort of technical, legal reasons as to why all of this has happened. And I think I should say on the record that Eskom denies it's stopping people from producing their own power. But on a nice, sunny day in the Free State, what's happening to the solar power you produce?
Well, thankfully, still quite a bit of it is getting to our customers that we distribute the electricity to in the town of Frankfurt. But because of all the load shedding and the fact that we are not allowed to export any electricity to Eskom, we actually have to throttle our inverters, which means there's quite a bit of solar panels that's not operational when the sun is shining very nicely.
So you could be producing a lot more electricity, but you've got nowhere to send it.
Correct. And remember, our customer base has been made smaller because of the load shedding. So now the plant is too big, which means we can't export it anywhere else or use it anywhere else. Although we have a small battery that we've started, a megawatt hour of battery power, but that's just the start. That's not that doesn't have the significant capacity to store all the rest of the energy in.
So just to be clear, we're on stage 5 load shedding right now, probably stage 8, and you've got excess power that you can't sell.
That is correct. But the one nice thing is Eskom has come back to us very recently and actually offered that we can potentially export to them, but they are only now going to start the investigation. And we just hope that this will hopefully be done before the end of the year. But at least there's been positive movement on that front, Stephen.
Do you know if there's grid capacity, Eskom grid capacity in the Free State to take your power?
You see, Eskom is using a considerable amount of electricity also in the town of Frankfurt. So the surplus electricity that we have doesn't even have to go onto the national grid. The surplus electricity that we have can simply be used by Eskom locally, which is actually why we're all quite concerned that it's taking so long, because there is actually no national grid implication. We're actually lightening the load on the national grid, because if Eskom were to use some of our surplus power, it's less to actually come via the transmission grid, and that can all be used locally within Frankfurt.
How much power are you actually producing?
We're doing on a good day about 3,900 kilowatts. Which is a considerable amount of electricity. Our total demand in the daytime is round about, if it was unrestrained, obviously without load shedding, is about 6,000 kilowatts. And with load shedding, we've split the town into 5 sections. So every section is about 1.5 megawatts. And the moment that you load shed, then you can see we're sitting at very close to, if we lose 1.5 megawatts, we're sitting very close to generating the full need of the town when the sun is shining.
Because it's only when the sun is shining, but you've got plans for batteries. So you could actually generate power for quite a significant section of this town. They would basically be off the grid. I don't know if they'll be running, ovens, but they'll be close to off the grid.
You see, it's a step-by-step, it's a journey that we're actually all taking as South Africans. Government has said, and Eskom has, by a number of instances where I've actually heard, they said it's a South Africa problem. It's not just the Eskom problem. So, okay, if it's a South Africa problem, then let South Africans put solutions forward. And if South Africans do put workable solutions forward, and remember, our solution, we've never professed, is the solution for the country, and that's the only solution. Our solution is the first step, the very first cheap step to actually put electricity onto the grid. So when the sun is shining, we generate electricity. And if we can get that right, which means if every town in South Africa adopts what we have done, that means 1,000 towns, I'm just taking a number more or less, 4 megawatts on a town, that puts 4,000 megawatts onto the grid during sunlight hours. Now, when we put 4,000 megawatts on the grid in sunlight hours, it's going to have such a huge positive effect on the national grid, because all that energy, if every town has its own little generator running, it means we are freeing up grid capacity, we're lessening the strain on Eskom. And Eskom, obviously, then in the daytime has time to recharge, to refill, to re-energize what they need to do, which means that will be very helpful during the evenings. So as a first step solution, this really is a solution that should be adopted by government, embraced by government, and say, gee whiz, guys, communities are coming together to put solutions on the table, solutions which doesn't cost the government or Eskom any money. Because it's totally being funded by South Africans, for South Africans. And I really thought that we would have had a total different approach by government to real community-based solutions like ours that actually work, and that's the first step of getting things back together again.
Can I ask how expensive it was for you're generating a certain amount of power, how expensive it was to get things up and running? And you would have to do the investment up front, of course.
That is correct. And remember, it's not just about building a small PV plant. It's about being able to, in the town where the electricity is being used, to actually have infrastructure that is strong enough to actually accept the PV power that is being generated. So this is exactly what happened in our case. We had to buy the land. We had to actually then build the plant. We had to strengthen the infrastructure in the town so that that electricity can come seamlessly into town without causing any upsets. And there's 21 shareholders, farmers, businesses, local people within Frankfurt that actually all forked out, all 21 of them forked out just over 100 million rand to actually put this electricity onto the grid and provide, to try and alleviate the load shedding prices and actually make load shedding slightly more when we do have electricity.
So there's a lot going on here, and a lot might also depend on what other councils do. We know what the City of Cape Town's trying to do. The City of Joburg's spoken about getting independent power producers. This is obviously something you would recommend. Do you think it would be possible to do it quite quickly? I mean, obviously, a big plant costs more money, takes a little while longer to get going for a big city. But do you think we're actually going to see a change?
Well, Stephen, I can tell you from experience, and Frankfurt is a relatively poor community and a relatively small community. If government actually allows and just steps aside and actually gives the private sector and the communities the support to actually do what they do, we can have 4,000, anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 megawatts on the grid within a year. And that is definitely something that is possible. And nobody's saying government should stop putting generation capacity and coming up with whatever they want to come up with to actually generate electricity. By all means, government must proceed. But at the end of the day, if government allows the people and the communities in the various towns out there. And remember, we are Dinkum nation as South Africans. I don't think there's anybody better. We face adversity, we get over ourselves, we can accomplish anything. And all that government now has to do is to actually trust its citizens. And if they can trust their citizens and trust their communities, I think we're going to repay government handsomely without them even having to fork out any money. And that could happen within a year. Without joking.
Chris Bosch, thank you. The CEO of the company Rural Maintenance, as you can hear, producing electricity for Frankfurt, the Mafube municipality in the Free State. Of course, lots of conversations around this and how electricity should be provided.